Everybody, Chris and Newman here. This is going to be an interesting one tonight. Uh, yeah, we're back on that topic again. And I was kind of just getting the impression to hold off a little bit before I filmed it, so it's going to be kind of late. But the missing pieces finally came to me, so we're going to be talking about dragons and the Cataclysm dragons, and you'd be surprised how much there is about this. But there's some extra pieces that go along with it. But before we get to that, I'm going to draw the giveaway winner tomorrow. And just to keep it interesting, we're going to do one more. So with this one, when you comment on the video, it enters you. We're going to give away one of these. This is one of those new ones that we made. It's not like a whiz bang freaking crazy one. It's more what I call a mechanical pendant. It's the ground and clear type. Because what I found is a lot of times you got to bring like spirit back into the body. You got to bring lumen back in the body. But a lot of times you got to bring yourself back into the body to clear things out. That's where you're most effective. So that was my solution, was to make something very simple but potent. It's comprised of 3 different stones. It's hematite, smoky quartz, and green, I almost said tourmaline, green fluorite. That's the one that brings order out of chaos for the energy. So this is when things just get really crazy and out there, and you need to get yourself rooted back down. So that's going to be the second one that we draw for. Okay, so before we get to the topic, what I did, this was my inspiration this morning after I woke up, because that dream the other day, like that, I'm telling you, like it wasn't just a regular freaking dream. But it whatever reason, I got thinking about the Cataclysm dragons, and I wanted to see like how many there were and kind of compare them, and I found a lot more than I knew were out there. And 2 of them were direct matches for some of the stuff that was in the dream. So that was pretty interesting. But as I was leading up to this video, I started thinking back to like when she first started talking about dragons. And I scrolled back through my videos and I found one because, I got a lot of videos on my channel that are just like little small short ones that are unlisted. They're just there for me. Sometimes that's how I record my clues. And I found one that had to do with that. But also, she was bringing up, just to reiterate, some of the stuff can be kind of hard to grasp just because it takes a while to go far enough to see the difference in things, meaning you spent most of your life programmed to understand and interpret reality from a, if I can see it, that's what I believe sort of perspective, believing in the reality of the world that is outside of you. And it takes a whole lot of practice and effort to realize that's what's going on in the mind is a lot more complicated. And that's where a lot of the stuff actually plays out. You exist in 2 worlds, an inner world and an outer world. And for most people, their inner world is simply a burnt reflection of the outer world. That's why that's all they believe. When you get all that cleaned up, it's 2 different worlds. And you come to understand that imagination is a lot more than what they told you. They specifically started telling you around somewhere between 1st and 3rd grade. That's where I used to hear it the most. Oh, that's just your imagination. The insinuation being what you imagine is not real, which could not be further from the truth. Because most of what you, not all of it, but a good portion of the spiritual path stuff is going to play out in the imagination. The imagination is the 3rd eye. And there's 2 ways in which you observe imagination. Part of it is observing what you yourself are creating. So if I say, think of a green elephant in front of a pink house, you instantly think of a green elephant in front of a pink house. You created that image. I might have suggested it, but you created it. That is creation. Now, the psychic third eye stuff, everybody does it and don't realize they do it because movies show you things portrayed a certain way. So you think it's some big mystical thing that you don't have, but yet you do. What about the images that pop into your head that you did not choose to create? What are those? Well, a lot of times that's where your higher aspects are communicating with you, or your adversarial aspects are messing with you. You didn't create the image. You didn't choose the image. It's just there, and you can see it. Maybe you can feel it. There's lots of different ways that this goes about. So understand that you have these abilities. You're just, a lot of people just are not recognizing that they have them. You know, movies work both for and against you. There's a lot of hidden clues in them, but also that's how they hide things. They hide things by talking about topics that are intangible, like say hell, for instance. They don't want you to figure out hell, so they come up with a story that's largely metaphors, but then they make it literal, and they show you endless movies and pictures and paintings, so you think hell is a dark cave full of fire and, you know, winged, you know, reptilian demons with pitchforks. And you're like, well, I'm definitely not in hell because it doesn't look like that. And they tell you the devil is like a red guy with horns and a cape. He's like, whoa, ho, 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 ho. And you're like, well, I've never seen the devil, but what if the devil never looked like that? What if he looked like, you know, a blue guy? And you've been seeing blue guys your whole life. But so you never recognize what's in front of your face because you've been taught about all these intangible things and given images and associations with them. So when you do see things, you don't recognize them. There's a lot of twists and turns in this. It takes time. But your imagination is the gateway to inner realms, to heaven, to all sorts of different places, all sorts of different things. You just got to recognize like who's doing it. Okay. A lot of people that are going to be skeptical when people talk about things like that, they're going to judge it and weigh it by what they know, what they believe, and what they experience. They think that that person's just making it up themselves, when in fact, they're not making it up. They're like, hey, what am I looking at? You didn't choose to create that image, but you saw it. So some of this stuff actually plays out on those inner planes, but the stuff that we're talking about here tonight, I think, I do think, I don't know, but I'm just, based on the clues that I've seen in the insinuations, I think this stuff will eventually happen. And that's why it's so shocking, because no one will be able to believe it. But what I hadn't put together, it was something that was in what we were talking about with that. It was in that Inception clip that I showed. It might have been the last video, something that was said when Leonardo DiCaprio was teaching her, and he was talking about the dreamer creates the dream, and then the other people populate it with their subconscious mind, something like that. So it kind of gives the idea of like, well, you could say like the higher aspect of you, which is a higher aspect like God, this is its dream, and then you're in that dream and you're populating it with all your subconscious projections. Now, how does that relate? Well, it relates to back in the very beginning of June of last year, we were just finishing up the hero's journey, specifically like the last hidden steps of the tarot map and stuff like that. We were about to finish it. And we were talking about the mind garden. The mind is the garden. The garden is the mind. So the walled garden, Garden of Eden, perfection, whatever, is the mind. But we're in a corrupted state. So we were recognizing the fact we had just, like I said, gotten through a lot of big stuff, and she was teaching me about the mind garden. It's like, you know what? There's too many weeds to pull. It's take too long, take forever. So the idea was given to me that sometimes you got to burn it all down and start over. Now, Lumen has this pet dragon, or she can become the dragon. That first emerged during the battles with the negative ego self, the anti-self, the anti-Christ. That's going back a couple years. But it's like we couldn't get rid of that freaking thing. Like, she just beat the living holy shit out of it as a dragon, and it's like, what does it take to kill you? We finally figured it out. But then she kind of just had this dragon that was kind of like the guardian of the garden, guardian of the mind. Like, we learned how we've been conditioned and taught through life to just have an open mind. Yeah, they want you to have an open mind. They want to be able to just put whatever they want in it at any time. And we had to learn to not have an open mind. You know, some of these things mean different things depending on which way you look at it. So she had this dragon that guards things in there so things can't get in and implant stuff. So it was given us the idea that we needed to start from scratch. So we moved Lumen somewhere else, which I can't disclose. But then she basically just, and I just watched this all play out. She just, once we cleared everything out of there, she just set the dragon loose in the garden and started scorching everything, just burning everything. So that all the weeds were gone, and then we could start growing new things. And then about a month after that, that's when we started getting the dragon signs come up. That's when she started drawing my attention to these old myths and the plasma apocalypse and how they all fit together. And it just kept coming up in the videos, and it kept coming up in the symbols. And, it seems like the dragon is, and it seems like there's multiple things throughout all these stories, but at least one of them is hers, Sophia's. It's just like in the Day of the Lord, that's Christ Sophia that's wrecking everything. Hide us, and they said to the mountains, fall on us and hide us from the face of he who sits on the throne and the wrath of the Lamb. A lot of people think he's the Lamb. No, she's the Lamb. They showed me that. Two sides of the same coin. And the way it was worded in that verse kind of makes it pretty clear they're talking about two separate things. But the dragon stuff just kept coming up, and then it stopped. And I had about 6 months or so where it hasn't come up at all. Now all of a sudden it's coming up again. Now the first indication of it coming up again, of this, now this imagery will make sense when you overlay it to some of the things that some of these different monsters we're going to discuss. But when Lumen was having her fit, and she has to, you have to fight back against this game. And she just popped this scene in my head and put the overlays in it. And I didn't really think much of it, except it was there was more that was going to come out later. So here was that scene. It was at the very beginning of the Why is Lumen Asleep video.
Sorry.
No, we could use a little worse.
Stark, we got him.
Banner?
Just like you said.
Then tell him to suit up. I'm bringing the party to you.
I don't see how that's a party.
Dr. Banner. Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Cat. I'm always angry. Hold on!
So I believe that those space whales, I think they call them in the movies, in the Avengers movies, are meant to represent Leviathan. And it's funny that there was a biblical reference in that scene when Iron Man flies down its throat. He's like, he asked Jarvis, he's like, Jarvis, you ever hear the story of Jonah? He's like, I wouldn't consider him a role model. And he flies into his... So they're making a biblical reference right there. So that came up, and then shortly after, then I had that dream. And I can't stress enough that this was not a normal freaking dream. I've never, ever had a dream like that before in my life. It was like 4K crisp, Technicolor, sharp. Like I was there. It might have still been a dream because it was a little bit off from base reality, but what I saw was clear as day. And one of the first thing I saw, which was the three-headed dragon in the sky, it wasn't like a living one, it was just like the image of one. That's going to show up here in a minute. And and the biggest thing about the dragon sign is the dragon sign is a sign of the reset, the cataclysm. And that is what I was making the connection to with when she had me use Lumen's dragon to burn down the garden of the mind because it couldn't be fixed. Well, what if we're in God's dream and the world has gotten so corrupted that the same thing happens? It's like, oh, I got to clear out the garden, unleash the dragons, tear it all down, start over. The dragons there's ones in the sea, sky, land, and all these different myths and tales. That's what they do. They wreck everything. So order can be made out of chaos and things can be renewed. And it's going to be crazy when you see how many of these dragon characters that we're going to talk about actually say those things. So let's go ahead and get into it. If you want to know more, don't go away. Now, the last time we were really talking about this, and she was bringing it up, and I was seeing images in my head. We were saying when we were doing the videos, it's like, from what I'm getting from her, it's like, I don't think people really understand like the size of these things. They're used to like dragons in movies and something like that. Okay, those, like say Game of Thrones dragon, right? That would be like an ant compared to these. Like probably less than an ant. These things are like 1/5 the size of the planet, at least. That's why when you see all those videos where they're like, hey, is this a dragon down here between, the bottom of South America and the top of Antarctica, like under the ocean? I look at that and think, that's not outside the realm of possibility for me. Well, like it's too big. Men's hearts failing for fear of what is coming upon the world. Like in the way she was explaining it before, when you got to like the sixth seal earthquake, the great earthquake, like what causes the earth to, it's those freaking things, like getting up. That's what causes like the sixth seal earthquake. It's the freaking, these giant ass freaking dragons that are just like the size of continents getting up, coming up out of the ground, out of the ocean, whatever. And again, Christians that still think Revelations is some 7-year thing, they got it wrong. And I can use their own book to show them that, plus all the other books. Everything from the sixth seal through the seventh trumpet happens in like 12 to 36 hours. And that's when you're extracted, and then it's finished off. That's the bowl judgments, when it's finished off. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into this list. It's quite interesting. Okay, so number 1 on the list, we have Tiamat. So Tiamat is from the Babylonian stuff, from the Enuma Elish. I might mispronounce some of these words. It's the Babylonian epoch of creation. Is slain by the storm god Marduk, but not before she conjures an army of monsters with poison for blood. Thing popped into my mind right there was like xenomorphs. And there, in a lot of the stories, there is things like a big monster and a whole bunch of little monsters. For instance, in Revelation, it was the 5th trumpet. That's when Abaddon comes out of the ground, the big bad, and unleashes all these like hellish locust creatures that attacks everybody except the ones that are sealed. Yeah, you see images of this in movies and stuff like that, but you don't realize that's what they're actually trying to show you. But the first thing that's interesting in that image, the Babylonian image with Tiamat, is Marduk, which is the god of storms, is holding that very particular shape, which is like the lightning bolt of the gods. You find that shape in the plasma apocalypse material. I left some things out of that, but that's where we start. So Tiamat would be the first one. The second one, most everybody knows, the Great Red Dragon from Revelations. Source material. The Great Red Dragon appears in the book of Revelation, particularly in chapters 12 and 20 of the Christian Bible. 2, it's a symbol of evil. The dragon is identified as Satan, representing the ultimate force of chaos and opposition to God. 3, pursuit of the woman. The dragon pursues a woman clothed in the sun, which ChatGPT says, symbolizing Israel, because Israel thinks they're the center of everything, or the Virgin Mary, actually is Sophia, seeking to destroy her and her child. And if you dig a little bit deeper into those verses where it says he unleashed, he was chasing her, and he unleashed a torrent of water, that's like the super tsunami, but then a crack opened up in the earth and swallowed all the water. That's like the mega cracks. That was even in the remote viewer thing that we showed. They just didn't know what they were looking at. 4, battle in heaven. These are like the main attributes that we're going over for each one of these. The dragon is defeated by Michael and the heavenly army, symbolizing the triumph of good over evil in the cosmic struggle. 5, final judgment. In Revelation 20, the dragon is cast down into the lake of fire, marking the ultimate defeat of evil and the renewal of the world. Number 3. I had to ask ChatGPT to give me like some phonetic spelling for these. Yermungand, the world serpent from Norse mythology. Origins, I'm just going to say the world serpent, is one of Loki's monstrous children cast into the ocean by Odin. So this one is an ocean-based one. It grows so large that it encircles Midgard, Earth, and bites its own tail, which is the symbol of the Ouroboros. And like I said, that's kind of plausible when you look at the scale of like that dragon shape that is underneath South America. And what she was showing me was like, yeah, these bare minimum, they'd be like 1/5 the size of like Earth. Like when they're up in the sky, you know, people on 2 continents are seeing them. 3, rivalry with Thor. It has multiple encounters with Thor, including a famous fishing battle where Thor nearly kills it. Who's Thor? The god of thunder, which matches up to Tiamat and Marduk, who's the god of storms and lightning. 4, the Ragnarok prophecy. During the final battle, that big freaking snake thing, fights Thor, poisoning him before dying. So there's the poison again. 5, end of an age. Its death, along with Thor's, signals the end of the current world and the beginning of a new cycle. See, these are all like, a lot of these are cataclysm dragons. Number 4, Leviathan. Another biblical one, often gets overlooked. This one I got a little bit more detail on it. Source material. Leviathan appears in multiple texts, including the Bible, Job 41, Psalm 74:14, Isaiah 27:1, the book of Enoch, which has come up again. Maybe I need to read it, particularly in 1 Enoch, and certain Gnostic traditions. Not really. When I ask for more details on certain Gnostic traditions, they're making the leap of just associating it with the demiurge and the archons and stuff like that. So I wouldn't go that far. Biblical description and form. In the book of Job, Leviathan is described as a mighty and untamable sea creature, often likened to a great serpent or dragon. Its scales are impenetrable, its fiery breath causes terror, and it is impervious to human weapons. Leviathan is an embodiment of chaos, symbolizing untamed forces of nature that defy human control or comprehension. Number 3, Leviathan in the book of Enoch. In 1 Enoch, specifically in chapters 60 through 69, Leviathan is portrayed more distinctly as a primeval force of evil. It is said to dwell in the great deep, which, if you look at one of the cosmological, biblical diagrams of Earth, you'll see what the great deep actually is. It's kind of like an ocean under the ocean, and is described as a huge serpent or dragon. First Enoch explains that Leviathan, along with Behemoth, another primeval creature, will be slain in the eschaton by God to signal the final purification and establishment of a righteous kingdom, a renewal. Okay, I'm going to skip the Gnostic interpretation because I don't agree with what ChatGPT came up with here. Number 5 is Vritra. I don't know if I'm pronouncing some of these right, but oh well. Source material. Vritra appears in the Rig Veda, one of the oldest Hindu scriptures. 2, primordial blocker. This is a great serpent or dragon. It hoards the cosmic waters, causing drought and chaos. 3, its divine opponent is Indra, the thunder god, which is chosen to defeat Varitra and restore balance. So that is the third one that we have, where its main opponent is some sort of god of thunder or storms or lightning. And it won't be the last either. 4, battle of storm and strength. Indra, wielding the thunderbolt, slays Varitra after drinking soma for strength. Got to do that. 5, release of waters. Varitra's death frees the blocked rivers, symbolizing the restoration of cosmic order. So once again, this stuff happens and then it creates a restoration, a new beginning. They even show you this in the MonsterVerse movies like Godzilla, King of the Monsters. They make very clear they make a very clear point to say that wherever these titans go, yeah, they wreck stuff, but then like new life springs up, new forests and all sorts of things like that. So again, they're hiding things in plain sight in the movies, and no one, a lot of times when you're looking at the modern stuff, you're not looking too deep to make those connections. Number 6, yeesh, this is this is not a good one. As a matter of fact, this name, well, I'll get to that. I'll add it to what's written. Number 6, Typhon. Source material. Typhon appears in Theogony by Hesiod and other Greek mythological texts. Point 2, monstrous chaos. It is a massive fire-breathing creature with 100 serpent heads. Typhon is born to challenge Zeus. So 100 serpent heads, this is plasma apocalypse type stuff. 3, battle with Zeus. Typhon and Zeus engage in a cosmic struggle, with Typhon initially overpowering Zeus and cutting his sinews. 4, final defeat. Zeus regains his strength, hurls thunderbolts, and traps Typhon beneath Mount Etna. So now we have 4 characters. A cosmic character versus a big dragon and thunder and lightning. 5, symbol of order over chaos. Typhon's defeat secures Zeus's reign and represents the triumph of Olympian order over primordial chaos. The extra thing I was going to say is the name Typhon, you know where that appears? It appears in the Rider-Waite Tarot in the explanation of the Devil card. It says in there, here the devil represents Typhon. Interesting. Moving on. All right, let's go to number 7. One I can definitely pronounce, Gong Gong. Source material. Gong Gong appears in ancient Chinese mythology, particularly in texts like the things that I can't pronounce. You can Google these things rather than me butcher them. Point 2, rebellious deity. A destructive water god, Gong Gong is known for causing great destructive floods and challenging the celestial order. Destructive floods are a key component of the Cataclysm. 3, battle with Zuanzu. Gong Gong fights the emperor god Zuanzu, but is ultimately defeated. Point 4, collapse of Mount Buzhu. In his rage, Gong Gong smashes his head against this mountain, tilting the sky and causing cosmic disorder. Cataclysm. 5, world reordering. The goddess Nuwa repairs the sky. That's probably like a Sophia adjunct. Restoring balance, marking the transition between chaos and a renewed world order. All these things, it's all talking about one freaking thing. which is what we call the day of the Lord. Okay, where we are now. Can't see these because they're from all over the world. They all got crazy ass names I can't pronounce. Okay, this is Sipakna, which is mentioned in the Popol Vuh, the sacred text of the Maya. Cosmic role. Sipakna is a massive dragon-like monster, often depicted as a giant crocodile or serpent. Boastful power. He claims to have created mountains in a single night, symbolizing his destructive and chaotic power. 4. Defeat by the hero twins. I'm not even going to try to pronounce them. But they cause a mountain to collapse on the big alligator. Point 5, a symbol of chaos. Sipakna represents natural chaos, whose defeat by the twins restores order to the world, reflecting themes of creation and cosmic balance. It's all the freaking same. Now we get to one of the two that best represent the first thing that I saw in my dream. The three-headed dragon. And these are also, so this one is number 9, Ozzy Dahaka. Just to freaking make it simple, we're going to call him King Ghidorah. It's basically the same thing. Okay, source material. King Ghidorah appears in the Zoroastrian text, particularly the Avesta and the, gosh dang it. Number 2, monstrous form. King Ghidorah is a three-headed dragon or serpent, often depicted as a symbol of chaos and destruction. Point 3, origin. He is a tyrant king, originally human, who was transformed into a monster due to a curse by the evil spirit Ahriman. Why does that sound familiar? 4, symbol of evil. King Ghidorah is a representation of the forces of darkness, spreading corruption and suffering across the world. Point 5, defeat and renewal. In Zoroastrian eschatology, King Ghidorah is eventually defeated by the hero Karaspa, or by the coming of the savior figure. Insert Jesus character here. I can't say any of these freaking names in these other languages. Marking the restoration of order and the defeat of evil. And when I asked ChatGPT if King Ghidorah was based on that, it said, yes, King Ghidorah, the three-headed dragon from the Godzilla franchise, is widely believed to have been inspired by Ozzy Dahaka. Both creatures share significant similarities. Number 10 should sound familiar. Apep, also known as Apophis. Source material. Apep, also spelled Apophis, is a serpent or dragon-like creature in ancient Egyptian mythology, primarily featured in texts like the Book of the Dead and the Pyramid texts. Point 2 is symbol of chaos. Apep represents the forces of chaos, darkness, and destruction, opposing the sun god Ra in his journey through the underworld. 3, endless battle. Every night, Apep attempts to stop Ra's passage to the underworld, seeking to devour the sun and plunge the world into eternal darkness. 4, defeat by Ra. Ra, aided by other gods like Set, fights Apep nightly. Their struggle symbolizes the cosmic battle between order and disorder. Point 5, destruction and renewal. Apep's ultimate defeat ensures the rebirth of the sun each morning, representing the triumph of light and order over darkness and chaos in a continuous cycle. Extra bonus points. Do you remember, I want to say it was the great eclipse last April, NASA was going to shoot rockets through the shadow, and they called the program or the rockets APEP. Like, yeah, that's weird. Another place APEP shows up is in one of the two tarot decks that have the secret map in it, the Wheel of Fortune, where it says APEP on the snake. So I believe that they're trying to give you a hint about when it is in that card, but it's kind of hard to tell. So, yep, that would be APEP. Okay, number 11. This is the other one that matches the three-headed dragon in my dream. And this one's got some cool stuff. I got a cool video to show you with this one. I like his name, even though I probably butcher his name. I like it because this is Russian. Zmei Gorinich. Source material. Zmei Gorinich is a dragon from Slavic folklore, prominently featured in Russian fairy tales and epics. 2. Multiple heads. Typically depicted with 3 heads, each capable of breathing fire, Zmei Gorinich is a terrifying and powerful creature. Symbol of chaos. The dragon is often a symbol of chaos and destruction, terrorizing the land and representing a challenge to the forces of good. Defeat by heroes. Zmei Gorinich is usually defeated by a brave hero, often a prince or knight, who slays the dragon and restores peace to the kingdom. 5. Cultural significance. The dragon represents the battle between good and evil in Slavic folklore, with its defeat symbolizing the triumph of order over chaos. And they have, let me show you this clip here. They actually have a big statue of this dragon in Russia that breathes fire. It's pretty freaking cool. Check this out. And the fact that all these are coming from every part of the freaking world just tells you, like, you know, this is just embedded in everybody's cultural memory, because it is literally like the biggest, craziest, worst thing that humanity has ever encountered, going through a cataclysm. But number 12, this looks like we're going to Japan. We've got Yamato no Orochi. Okay, the source material. Yamato no Orochi appears in Japanese mythology, specifically in texts like, oh gosh dang it, Nihon Shoki and the Kojiki. Japanese isn't that hard to say. Form and appearance. Yamato no Orochi is a massive 8-headed and 8-tailed dragon, serpent or dragon, described as a creature of great size and power. Destructive nature. The serpent terrorizes the land, demanding the sacrifice of a young woman, one of whom is the maiden Kushinada Hime. Then it goes into, let's see, defeat by Sunsunu, the storm god. This is what, number 5, 6 of the storm gods? Susanoo slays Yamato no Orochi by getting it drunk on sake and then chopping off each of its heads and tails, saving the princess. Symbolic meaning. The defeat of Yamato no Orochi represents the triumph of divine order over chaos, with Susanoo's victory restoring balance and prosperity to the region. New Golden Age. This is all Cataclysm stuff. Okay, now this one is got a little bit more to read, because ChatGPT didn't know about this, but I did. Number 13 is what we're calling the Sky Monsters, which is where you get the double dragon Ouroboros symbol. And this we draw from the Colburn Bible, which is a very interesting book. Very interesting book. It is a collection, like some of the stuff is older than the Bible. The first part is like, has Egyptian origins, and the second part is like Celtic. I'm like, well, there's a mix. But either which way, in the first part is like the book of creation and destruction. It gives one of the most detailed accounts of this day of the Lord cataclysm, like the last one. And that's where this comes from. So these are my notes. Since ChatGPT didn't have access to that text, I had to put it in here. Okay. Point 1. Two creations in the Great Destruction. The Colburn Bible speaks of two cycles of creation. The first world was destroyed in a catastrophic event brought about by a celestial dragon, and the earth was reborn during a second cycle of creation, which is the one that we're in. This destruction was initiated by a fearsome dragon from the heavens that lashed its tail, breathed fire, and unleashed devastating storms, causing chaos on earth. There's stuff in here that, you know, a lot of this is going to match up with, it's the same dragon that's in Revelations. 2. Sky monsters. The text describes not just one, but multiple sky monsters that descended from the heavens, causing chaos and battling for dominance over the earth. The first sky monster was joined by another, and together they wreaked havoc, symbolizing cosmic forces of destruction. Their battle and eventual defeat symbolize a cleansing of the earth and the restoration of divine order. Apocalyptic effects. The sky monster's passage caused catastrophic environmental changes, massive storms, earthquakes, rising seas, and widespread devastation. Earth itself was torn open, breathing foul air that drove men mad and killed many, while others were buried in ash and swallowed by the earth. The sheer terror caused by these events led to mankind being stricken with madness, forgetting their wisdom and guidance. It's kind of like when they meet Satan in that the adventures of freaking, what was it? It wasn't Tom Sawyer, it was shoot, who was that? I'm blanking right now. Who wrote this stuff? It was Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer. My brain ain't working right now. I tried to show that the other day, and I'm like, check this crazy stuff out, but YouTube was blocking me. Yeah, remind me, and I'll put a link to it in the description, or in the comments, because it's freaking nuts.
Hello. Who are you? An angel.
What's your name?
Satan.
Uh-oh.
Number 4, divine intervention and cosmic balance. Is this... Get skip. Yep. The battle between sky monsters and the intervention of God, or divine forces, led to the creatures being slain by the divine sword, which I think is like the Ace of Swords, and their bodies fell to earth, enlarging both the land and the sea. This act of divine judgment marked the destruction of the old world and prepared the way for the recreation of earth. Rebirth and renewal. After the cataclysm, earth was reborn under a purified sky, with the seas returning to their places and the land being restored to stability. However, the survivors lived in fear that the heavens would once again unleash the terrifying monsters. While life and nature were renewed, the memory of the great destruction persisted as a warning, with the earth now a place of renewal but also of dread, as the skies were feared to hold a dangerous secret. Yikes. Yeah, that is a Colburn Bible. Like, that's a crazy thing to read. It's a lot more specific. It's talking about the same type of stuff Revelation is talking about, but it's a lot more specific. Now, I added one more using a modern source, because again, they're always using modern. There's things in modern sources too. Like I said, Godzilla, you know, they mentioned Behemoth in Book of Job, I think it was, earlier, with Leviathan. I think there might be a Leviathan in the Godzilla franchises. I know there's a Tiamat, and I know there's a Behemoth, and Ghidorah is, you know, that other one that I can't pronounce. But this one is actually from a Marvel movie, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which if you haven't seen that, this part is pretty freaking cool. And that is the Great Protector versus the Dweller in Darkness. So the Great Protector looks like a traditional big giant, serpentine Chinese dragon. And the Dweller in Darkness is this big crazy looking thing that has all these little smaller things, kind of like the other stories, including Revelations. And these things just go around and snatch people's souls and then feed it to the big thing. So the Great Protector is a massive serpentine dragon-like creature. The Great Protector guards the mystical village of Talo in the movie. It is a force of good, embodying protection and balance, similar to the benevolent Great Dragon in other mythologies. The Dweller in Darkness is a shadowy dragon-like entity. The Dweller in Darkness is a malevolent force released by VENMO. It represents chaos, corruption, and destruction, similar to the destructive chaos seen in mythic creatures like Dweller in Darkness or other monstrous entities from apocalyptic traditions. Let's see. I don't need to read all that. But yeah, it's an interesting scene to watch if you've not seen that movie and seen like some of the similarities. But there's also one other kind of weird thing about that, and that is I did some research, and in the comics, the Dweller in Darkness is not some giant freaking hell monster dragon. It looks like any other character, but it looks like something very, very specific because he's kind of like got this squid head. So he looks like what is commonly known as a mind flayer, which mind flayer, maybe you know that name from like Stranger Things, but mind flayers originated from like Dungeons and Dragons. They are the representation of archons. They create illusions, they mess with people's minds, they suck off their consciousness. They're connected to the parasites and all that stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see that kind of correlation there as well. Now, I probably could have gone deeper, but I wanted to stick with the biggest ones. But there's like 14 or 15 giant freaking cataclysm dragons from all over the world, across the ages. And all these stories have similar themes. It's all the key themes in the cataclysm. It's either the great waves, tidal waves, battling against some more heroic side that is wielding lightning, and that's basically this right here. That's plasma apocalypse stuff, because that's Christ and Sophia doing that stuff, and the Medusa face has to do with Sophia, and that's when you've done pissed her off, which she talks about in Proverbs. Like, yeah, I'm paraphrasing here. This is paraphrasing. She's like, yeah, she basically says something along the lines of, y'all just keep on talking shit. Keep on talking, because there's going to come a day when I'm going to unleash hell on this place. And that's when you're going to be like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm going to have my AirPods in. Like, I ain't hearing you. You're just going to get it. All the scoffers and the mockers and stuff like that. Gonna come a day.
In place of a dark lord, you would have a queen! Not dark, but beautiful and terrible as the dawn! Treacherous as the sea! Stronger than the foundations of the earth! All shall love me and despair!
So, seeing multiple of those different types of dragons and beasts in there being represented. Now, the crazy thing is there's nothing in there that is like a direct model of Godzilla. But here's what I was thinking. First of all, the name. Godzilla. And what do they show Godzilla? How do they usually represent Godzilla? Not only in the original stuff, but especially like the more recent things. Godzilla is like the protector of the balance. So when things start acting out of balance, like the Titans in the movies, yeah, they do their thing and they wreck stuff and new life grows from it. But if they start getting out of hand, then Godzilla's like, yeah, you're not doing that. And he goes and kicks their ass. So he's kind of like the top cop that's keeping everything in line. So maybe that's where it fits in. It's like that he represents maybe the divine power, the balancer, the judge, or whatnot. But there are other ones. And very clearly these sky dragons are shown in correlation with things that are often associated with like War of the Gods in the heavens and lightning bolts. And those shapes of those divine lightning bolts have to do with plasma patterns. So plasma apocalypse, it's all the same thing. And just like, as above, so below, as within, so without, the way things work in our minds, the macrocosm and the microcosm, we are occupying, you could say we're occupying God's mind. And once we've mucked it up enough, it's like, okay, yeah, it's just like it's the metaphor that she had with us. Like we had to clear out the mind garden. So Lumen, get your little dragon out and go burn down the freaking garden. Why? So we can rebuild it. That's the same thing on a bigger scale, what this cataclysm reset is. And it's only a bad thing. It's only scary if you're not part of the club. Because the sealed people make it through all that stuff. Or are removed, one of the two. But I guess the reason we're bringing this up is like, like that dream. I've never had a dream like that. And this is not the first time she's brought up apocalypse dragons. I don't go looking for this stuff. She just brings this stuff up, drops it in front of my face, shows me signs, shows me symbols, points things out. She's brought it up before. Now she's bringing it up again. And if you watch the last video, what happened after I had that dream, woke up, jumped in the shower and heard the loud knock at the door, which caught me off guard because I don't expect people to knock. I had to rush and put my robe on and all that stuff. I mean, she basically had me, walking through like a living lesson, living metaphor. You're not going to see it coming. Not knocking anybody, but all you guys are staring at Jewish calendars and stuff like that, trying to predict this stuff. You're wasting your time. Okay, it's not going to be obvious like that. Not going to happen. It's going to happen on a day like right now. This is the perfect time because what everybody's thinking right now is everything's going back to normal. I mean, even the people that are making it go back to normal are using the language. We're headed into a new golden age. We're heading into a new golden age. Well, guess what? You can't go from the bad age to the golden age without going through the eye of the cataclysm. It doesn't work like that. So it's a perfect opportunity for people to be caught unawares. Because let's just say that drunk chick would have got into office. And we'd be like, God only knows what would be happening to us now. People would be expecting sky dragons at that point. But they're not expecting it now. Because Trumpity Trump, he's here to save the day. He's going to make it all go away. It's all going to get better. So nobody is expecting a surprise knock at the door and freaking giant ass dragons coming out of the sky and the sea and like you're not going to see it come. Like, I don't know how many times across all the traditions, and especially the Bible, Old and New Testament, they're like, you ain't, I know you think you are, I know you think you're smart, but you're not going to see it coming. Even when Spirit is giving you clues, like here, you know, the day it happens, like, I'm just going to think it's any other day. Right? And all of a sudden the whole world's going to be like, where's this earthquake coming from? There's a big ass freaking dragon the size of 2 continents probably crawling out of the ocean. You'll see it in a minute. That's going to be fun to watch. Like, I honestly, truly, you ask me, I honestly do think this is going to happen. Because I have been out of the box for some time. I am not in the trap of normality, of this is the way the world always is. It's boring and nothing happens. And no, I've seen a lot of shit. I've seen some stuff that I don't even bring up because who would believe me? But that is not outside the way I understand the world to be. That is not outside the realm of possibility for me. And, you know, Lumen's here for it too. So that's our little presentation about something to think about. And I noticed one other person noticing they're seeing dragon synchronicities. And I've had a couple other people, you start looking, like, don't look for it. Because if you look for it, you will manifest it. But just forget that you're looking for it. Like, actually do that prayer trick I taught you, where when you get done asking for whatever information you want to know, then give your mind the instruction to make you forget what you asked for when you go to sleep. That cancels out quantum Zeno effect, so you don't get in the way of the result. So show me any proof or evidence of dragons or cataclysm or anything like that, and then make me forget that I asked. You know, after you see it a couple times, you'll eventually will remember. But you know, that's a huge trick for manifesting results from Spirit, is ask and then make yourself forget as you go to sleep. Okay, so let's wrap this up. If you want to support the channel, get any of the new stuff, I am posting things every day, because here lately, as soon as I'm like, shoot, maybe I should have put them up sooner. As soon as I put stuff up, they don't last long. So I'm setting a goal for myself that bare minimum, even if I'm super busy, if nothing else happens that day, I will at least get one new thing posted to the store every day. But I'm also making myself do things like, you know, if 2 things sell that day, I need to put 2 new things up. So we constantly have fresh stock being put up there. And that is at clumencreations.etsy.com. Also, check out the music. You either hate music or still got a lot of people with an id entity that doesn't like to hear it. Because I watch this stuff, I'm like, you really don't want to click this video, do you? I thought about putting something at the end of this one. I'm like, no, I want to make sure you see this one. So no Benedict exorcism in this one. But all that music is on our SoundCloud link, is in the description box below. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.